Yes, good afternoon from Turkey to our friends all over the world. This is another session of Anatolia's online lectures. So we have another distinctive and special guest from England, from the Bournemouth University, Professor Dimitrios Buhalis. I'm sure all the people on this screen know him. So Dimitrios is the editor of Tourism Review, one of the good journals in our field, and it's also one of the longest standing journal in the field of tourism. I think, I don't know how many papers you publish, Dimitrios, but I think it could be hundreds of papers, more than 200 or 300 papers, and also some books, book chapters, everything. So you are a very busy person, and also very handsome scholar, editor, friend to all of us. So I think we have some slides to make the presentation, and then we can ask the questions from the audience.
Thank you, Metin. Great pleasure to be with you, and it's always good to kind of share this kind of information, especially with young academicians, those who are starting their publishing career, because we're towards the end of our career. I'm just realizing that we are moving towards the most experienced kind of people, and we are engaging in, and we really need to look after our new academicians who are coming into the research journey. They start their research journey now. So it's a great pleasure to be with you. I'm going to go through a few slides. I'm not going to do too many slides, so we'll have the opportunity to discuss. I've kept quite a lot of time for you, so we can discuss, we can answer any question you like. You may like to add the questions on chat, or you may like to ask in person in a minute. But let's start with a few slides. Let me see how I can deal with that. So from here, I need to go into PowerPoint, and I need to open it up here. So thank you for the invitation, Kozak. As I said, I'm going to talk to you about publishing in top journals and get recognition, and then doing brilliant research. A lot of the things that I'm talking about are based on discussions that we had with very good friends. So I guess many of you in Turkey know Fevzi Okomus, who is the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management. And some of you may know my friend Cleopatra Velutsou, who is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Product and Brand Management. A lot of the discussion that I'm going to have here, it's things that we've been discussing with these people. And you will also know a lot of these characters: Rob Law, Sarah Doniger, Mariana Sigala, Hayen Song, and Bruce, Noel, and Bob, who are all very senior people that they've published, they've edited journals, or they currently edit journals. And every time we meet, we talk about a lot of those things, and we engage in conversation about what do we want authors to do, so when they are sending us a paper, it's in a much better condition, and we are in a position to actually accept it. All the editors I know, we are trying to publish the best research. So the more we kind of get best research out of authors, the better it is. Okay. Now, some people say, okay, why do you qualify? I guess I've been around for far too long, and I've been doing quite a lot of things. For the last 4 years, I'm editing the Tourism Review. Tourism Review is the oldest journal in tourism. It has got 75 years. And in the last 4 years, we've kind of relaunched it, we redeveloped it, and now it has got an impact factor of 2.9. And a site score tracker of about 3.6, I think was the last one. I've also done quite a lot of guest editorial work for many other journals, including the Journal of Product and Brand Management. There's a volume 30 issue 1 is coming very soon in January, and we're doing branding based on tourism and hospitality examples, and also we've done the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology. We've done a very nice special issue for Cihan Çobanoglu, who is the editor. I've probably done about 25 books. If you look into my Google Scholar has got about 800 actually publications for me, and it's got an H index of 91. On Scopus, you'll probably find 167 publications and that's really important, with 162 co-authors. I really like to work with other people, and recently we did with Metin a very nice journal about cross-border marketing. And if you look into the world of science, you probably find 106 publications, and you'll probably find about 70 citations per paper, which is quite high. And this was recently recognized by Clarivet. I was pronounced one of the highly cited researchers in 2020, which is 1 in 1,000. And I was ranked 1,976 in this research that came out of Bas, Boyak, and Ioannidis recently, and you can see the reference there. So I've been around, I've done a lot of things, and increasingly I'm putting a lot of material on my YouTube channel. So I would like you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's got similar kind of videos about how you publish and how you're doing research. It's got also videos about smart tourism. Some of the videos are in Greek because I'm trying to support the Greek tourism industry to restart after COVID, and that is what we do. Now, in terms of tourism review, I'd like to share some of the experience that I've seen in the last 4 years. And the other thing I do is the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing, and we're just discussing with Metin, and I said I would love to have all your terms. Just feel free to submit it. Now, I think before you kind of get started in research, you really need to select brilliant topics. And in order to do brilliant research, I think it's very important that you do the right topics. And you need to select the right topics. And I think one of the most important things is to kind of get the right inspiration to people to research the right things, and then get them published, and then get recognition citations afterwards. But I think everything starts from the right topic. I think everything starts from something that is new and interesting. How do you select research topics? There's a range of different ways of doing that. It's really about identifying topics of interest for yourself, but also for others, and create a comprehensive literature review, understand what are the research gaps, and engaging in global scientific debate. I think it's critical that when we are selecting research topics, we understand what is important for society and how can our research have got an impact to society, and how we can facilitate society to become a better place. Once you have done that, you really need to start selecting journals for publication and develop a research plan. Once a lot of people are waiting until they finish their research and then they select the topic, and then they select the journal. I think that's a mistake, because some of the journals will publish only particular things, and some of the journals will have a style. And I think you really need to start targeting a journal from the beginning to understand what you would like to do and how you would like to actually approach these things. And of course, it's really quite complicated to select a topic, and you really need to hold the crystal ball. But I think once you kind of understand the way to select the research that you would like to do, it will be much, much easier. And I think when I'm talking to my PhD students, I always tell them that they need to think about I and we. I, in terms of selecting research topics, what I'm really interested about, and then they, in terms of what they like to read. What does a society like to read? What's the interest of society? What society would like to research right now, and how can we engage society in our research, and how can we help with our research society? And I think the whole idea is really how can you have an orchestra that's producing a lot of different sounds, a lot of different research, but ultimately everybody contributes to the music. Everybody contributes to society, and everybody contributes to what we are doing with the research that we're doing. And I think that's really, really critical, that we don't do research for selfish reasons, just for ourselves, but we do research in a way that we contribute to society in general. A lot of the researchers I meet, they just tell me, I must publish 3 papers in an SSCI journal, any SSCI journal, right? And the more you go towards Asia, which is much more quantitative, the more kind of people are focusing on publishing in 3 SSCI journals. And I think it's really critical to understand why you're publishing and where do you like to do. You really need to identify what's the impact of your research, who is going to benefit from your research. I think this is really much more important than how many papers you're going to publish. So start thinking who is going to benefit from your research, and how can you create the golden egg? How can you create that research paper that's going to make a real difference? Because a lot of, as editors, we are receiving a lot of papers. I receive about 700 papers on tourism review, and I'm really looking to the golden egg. I'm really looking to something that's new, something that's interesting, something that can engage us. I think in order to do that, you really need to read the journal. You need to look at the focus of the journal. You need to know the latest publications that the journal is publishing. You need to discuss those papers. You need to reference the papers, and you need to review for the journal. So if you're not a reviewer, I suggest that you speak to the editor-in-chief of the journal that you would like to review and offer your services. It's only fair, because other people will be offering their services to read your material. I think you really need to consider who needs your research. Why would someone spend 2 hours reading your paper? And also, what I'm always asking my students, would someone pay $100 to read your paper? I think that is the most difficult question. Would someone pay $100 as a value to read your paper? And if they don't, there's no point of publishing, because ultimately someone will have to put a value to it. And while $100 kind of sounds a lot of money, actually it's the time that people will invest to read your paper, and that gives a significant amount of value that your paper needs to give. And a lot of people are trying to get a rapid publication, and there are ways of doing a rapid publication, but again, those ways are not going to take you anywhere. You really need to look into how you're going to solve a valid problem, and that is a painful process, but this is the process that is bringing things. Where should I publish and what should I find? It's where people look at and what they read, and which journals they read, and how do they reach them, how do they engage with them, and who else is reading, who else is publishing in these journals, who is the editorial board of the journal. So you really need to be with the right kind of people, and you really need to make sure that you make a contribution to your field. You need to understand the editor of the journal. And the editor of the journal says, I really want to publish the best research. Every single editor is doing that, and they're always looking for the best research. And what Fevzi always says is that the editor never sleeps. And those of you who have traveled with me, or you have seen me in different conferences, you know that I'm always connected and I'm always looking at different things. So this was when we're traveling at Gatwick Airport, just before I was boarding, I was looking what can I do with the journal. Now I'm very lucky with Tourism Review, and I guess Anatolia is like that as well, that we can publish more or less anything to do with tourism. But we really want to have original, creative, multi and interdisciplinary tourism contributions. Now, I need to give you a few little secrets that are coming out from Tourism Review. Because we've been so successful, I'm start publishing less and less and less on hospitality. So if you were to send me hospitality papers, they'll probably get desk rejected. Okay, you'll see what's happening in Tourism Review in the last few years. So when I started at the end of 2016, the journal was publishing 21 articles, then went to 29 in 2017, 36 in 2018, 55 in 2019. Then in 2020, we celebrate 75 years. And we did the first issue of 75.1 has got 75 perspective articles. So this year we're going to go up to 105 articles, and all of them are published already. And then next year we hope to stabilize to 80 articles per year. And because it's exhausting to publish more, and I think with 80 we'll retain the right level of quality. We've got a turnaround time of about 32 days. That means that hopefully within, so that's on average, and it includes desk rejection. So normally within 45 minutes, I'm pretty confident, 45 days, I'm pretty confident that you're gonna get an answer. I really hate when a journal waits for 6 months to tell you yes or no. Quite often we make decisions very, very quickly, and I'm pushing everybody on the editorial board to make quick decisions. So turnaround time for the time being is about 32 days. We've got an acceptance rate of about 12%. So 12% out of all the papers who are coming in are going to be accepted. We got into SSCI end of 2018. We got our first impact factor of 1.06, and we got the second impact factor 2.9. And that is growing fantastically well. You can see the growth of the journal, and you can see how many publications we do, and you can see how many citations we've got. And this is the latest information. I think it's last week, and you can see the growth that the journal is getting. So one of the things that's really critical on where you're publishing is to see the trajectory of the journals. So let me give you some reality check from the editor perspective. You've got 700 papers submitted. You compete for about 80 positions, so it's about 12% rate of acceptance. You've got 65% desk rejection. That means that they don't go beyond my office. So within 2 or 3 days, you should know if your paper has been desk rejected. That means that we're not going to take that forward. Quite often we're giving feedback already. So quite often I say to people, this is the first review that you get. It's the first review because if I desk reject, I give you sufficient reason. So you may choose to actually improve the paper and send it back again to the journal or finish that. And then you've got rejection on review 1, which is about 20%. And then if you survive review 1, it's kind of becoming more difficult to kind of reject you. Because already you've gone through 2 or 3 stages of quality control. But then normally we accept papers on review 4. So they've done 4 times, they've reviewed the papers before it's accepted. But I had a paper recently that was accepted on review 7, partly because I really wanted the paper, but the author was not actually doing as much as I wanted them to do. So every time I was asking them to do more things, and eventually it took 1 year and 2 months to actually get it accepted. But at least it was accepted on R7. So I think the important thing that people to understand is it's really very important to work with the editors and make sure that you don't get rejected. I think that's your objective, not to get rejected. And to work with the editors and the reviewers on how not to get rejected. Now, if you get rejected, there's a very nice famous whiskey in Ireland that's called Writer's Tears. I use it a lot. I still get rejected. I got the rejection last week, and A double whiskey always helps, but you may find different ways of actually dealing with rejection. But I think it's really important that you realize that we all get rejected. And sometimes we get rejected because it doesn't fit in the journal. Sometimes it doesn't, the quality of the research is not very good. Sometimes there are different reasons. But I think the important thing is to learn how to deal with that rejection and come back and go forward with that. I think it's really interesting to look into how you can articulate research objectives and how you write your papers. I think you really need to answer your internal questions, satisfy your curiosity, but also contribute to society and make sure that your boss and your supervisor and what's your promotion requirements, and eventually impress your mom. I think it's really important to think about what's a good paper and what's a toilet paper. We get a lot of papers on these 600, 700 papers I go through for tourism review, that some of them are toilet papers. I'm sorry, but they are. So you really need to understand that you don't submit toilet papers. And especially you need to respect the time of the editor and the time of the reviewer and the time of the reader. So you really need to understand what's happening. A good research topic is, it has got novelty, it's topical, it has got stakeholder value, it has got benefits for society, it has got relevance and impact. I think those, if you're addressing those things, it's very likely that your paper will be accepted. Novelty, it's topical, it has got stakeholder value, and it's got benefits to society, relevance and impact. Now, for those of you who are writing COVID papers right now, you know, Metin was one of the first one to write COVID papers. He published in Tourism Review. That paper is doing very, very well. A lot of people are reading it. A lot of people are using it. There's got a lot of citations and everything's wonderful. Now, a lot of things that Metin has said already, I don't want you to say them 2 years later, because those things are already on the public domain. So the next paper that's going to come in on COVID, it really needs to make a real clear contribution, and society should actually benefit from that. I think the other thing is you really need to be a little bit lucky. If you were doing PhD in virology 2020, a lot of people would like to talk to you. If you were doing any other PhD, you may find a lot of people that they are not really interested. I was very lucky because I was finishing my PhD in 95, and in 95 I was talking about technology and the internet. And everybody wanted to talk to me about technology and the internet. And if you see in my career, and I think a lot of people are asking me, why do you get cited so much and why do people read your papers? It's because I've always predicted what's going to happen in the next 5 years. I've always looked into what is the next big thing? What is smart? What's ambient technologies? What's all of these things? And a lot of people are constantly reading my publications because they really want to see what's going to happen in the future. So you need to be a little bit lucky and a little bit strategic. I think every journal starts with, of 1,000 miles, starts with a single step. And I think it's really difficult, especially from the beginning, for people to do the first step and take things forward. Metin, have I got another 5-7 minutes to talk about the process? Metin, I cannot hear you because you are muted. Your microphone.
Sorry, Dimitrios. Yes, you have another 5 or 10 minutes, but just shall I interrupt you? You just mentioned that you always are lucky to predict what will happen in the next 5-10 years when you are studying any subject. So what could be the most popular or smartest subject in the next 5 or 10 years, do you think?
I think right now everybody is looking into how we can restart. This is a tricky question, Metin, and you need to pay for it.
Except from COVID-19 and its impacts in the 5 years.
I think we really need to move away from COVID, and then a lot of people are thinking about what's happening in the future. But I think from my perspective, the future will be much more technology and digital engaged, and I think we'll have a lot of artificial intelligence, and we'll have a lot of things that developed with co-creation and a lot of things about. I'm really interested in how consumers are going to deal with tourism in the future. And I'm really interested on co-creation. And if you see my research, it's all about real time and how people will engage with their environment, their context in real time. I think this will be incredibly important for me. But a lot of people will be doing a lot of other things. But a lot of people will be dealing with sustainability. But again, when you are publishing on sustainability, you need to be you need to address new things, something that has never someone done sustainability. And there's some issues there. Let me go through, and then we'll have an open discussion. I guess a lot of people would like to talk about things. So the situations like that, of course, a lot of people are waiting for you to criticize your research. But actually, the interesting thing is that every time that someone is criticizing your research, you really need to learn from that, and you really need to improve your research. I think my best teachers were always those who were criticizing what I was doing with good intention, and they were telling us what to do in the future. As far as the process is concerned, you are submitting something that is then being evaluated. And sometimes it's a rejected paper there, or sometimes it's a rejection with an invitation to resubmit. That's great, because that gives you the opportunity to actually improve and gives you specific requirements from the editors on what they're going to do. Then it goes to refereeing, and referees are either rejected or they suggest revision. And when you do that, then again, we're going through the same process, and there's revision or rejection. And then we're going to this kind of loop where we can go around 3 or 4 or 5 times. As I said earlier, the maximum we had in tourism review was 7 times, where more revisions and more revisions are happening, and then eventually we've got an acceptance and we've got the publication. Then once we've got the publication, we start the next paper, and we start promoting the one that we have got published, so a lot of people know about it and cite the paper, and they know what we're doing. In terms of the process, you really think about the journals that you're trying to target. They're high-tier journals and low-tier journals. They're the best journals and they're not best journals. So the higher the tier of the journal, the more rigor it will require, the more structure and coherence it will have, and the quality of the writing will be higher. The lower tier journals will publish things that they're not as high, and they're not as good as the high tier journal. And again, you know, a little bit of whiskey helps. Let me explain to you what an editor sees, something that as an author you don't see. So we are looking into a lot of articles that are arriving, and we have got to make a decision. Is it new? Is it significant? Is it the original idea? Is it authentic? How long do you think that an editor has got to look into a paper when it arrives? I think it's important that you also realize that all the editors are writing papers themselves. They write bid applications, they are teaching, they're doing keynotes, they're traveling, they've got a life, and they're doing a lot of things. So I'm going through 700 papers every year for tourism review. How long do you think I can spend on it? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? So I think you really need to think about this. The answer is about, in 10 minutes, I've made the decision. So in these 10 minutes, you really need to get the editor to like your journal. And to like your journal, it needs to have high quality of research, high quality of data, good methodology, fits in the journal. It has got generalizability. So if it's a little village of Turkey outside Muğla, it's not going to get published in Tourism Review, I can tell you that. It may be published in the Journal of Turkish Tourism, and that is also the case everywhere. You know, I get a lot of Chinese papers these days where they're telling me about a national park somewhere in China. And I'm saying, okay, if I'm accepting that, would someone from Brazil read this? Is it interesting? But if you're doing something like entrepreneurship center, it may be things that you may you may research on one context, but then they can be applicable to many different places. I think what the editor is looking is this enough readership? Are a lot of people going to read it? Are they going to download it? Are they going to cite this paper? And I think that's really critical. I think the other thing is that you really need to be patient with the editor. This is my daily life. I receive something like that every day. So I need to make a decision for 5 papers. I need to chase reviewers who have been overdue on this one. I need to look into to assign more reviewers here. I need to forward this, and I need to look at this for the first time. And again, as I said, editors have got a life. They've got a lot of other things to do. The other thing is that when we are inviting you to review a paper, please accept. How many reviewers do we need? In tourism review, we normally have 3 to 4, but in order to have 3 to 4 good reviews, sometimes I send up to 8 invitations to review. So this person has done it, thank you very much. This person has declined, but offered alternative. I cannot do it, but someone else can do it. This person has declined, this person has agreed, this person has declined, this person has declined. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 declines out of 8 invitations. So if this person has declined and this person has declined, so therefore they do not volunteer their services for the journal, would I like to publish them in Tourism Review? No. Because if they do not volunteer, but they would like to accept the service of the other reviewers, that means that they are not community players. So before you're declining any editor's invitation to review, think very, very carefully, because we are looking into these things. Make sure that you do. On this example, I've invited, how many are they? 16 people. And I got 1, 2, 3 reviews so far. Now you just realize what's happening in the background, right? And I still have got all these things to look at. So again, make sure that you speak to the editor that you would like to publish and say, look, I'm going to do my community service and I'm going to do my things. Sometimes things go wrong. So this paper was received in 14th June 95 and was accepted in 8th of May 2006. I can guarantee this is never going to happen in Tourism Review, but the linear algebra and its applications on volume 430 has got a different kind of way of dealing with that. Now, when we receive reviews, quite often we get this situation: reject, minor revision, and accept. So in this situation, I need to understand what each of the reviewers is saying and make a decision. Now, I think it's really important to realize that I think this paper was accepted, actually. I think this paper is published. I think what you realize is that the reviewers are not making the decisions. It's the editor who makes the decisions. The reviewers are consultants to the editor. But ultimately, the editor is responsible for all the decisions that we make. And again, you realize that out of the 8 papers that we accept, we reject 7 and we keep 1. So your job is to be that one and not to be rejected, right? And of course, editors, occasionally they make big mistakes. So this editor, associate editor in 92, rejected this paper that in 2019 got the Nobel Prize. For a whole range of reasons, what got the Nobel Prize in 2019 was rejected in 2002. So editors are not always right, but quite often they are. But what we really want to do is we really need to have success, and we really need to make sure that people are progressing and they're publishing their things. In order to publish, in order to publish and to be successful, you need to have a well-designed original study to write about, select the appropriate journal, know what you want to write, writing clearly and succinctly, make a story interesting, highlight the importance of your research, help the editor of being prompt and polite, do your duty to the journal, and volunteer to review. I think those are critical kind of things to get you successful. And to finish, I think it needs to make it fun. It needs to be good for you to do it. And you really need to have an impact. And you really need to make sure that society benefits. Have fun doing it. This is in Azores last year when we were traveling, having a little bit of fun, but actually discussing a lot of those things. Love what you publish and what you do. Otherwise, don't do it. Change topics, change jobs if you don't love what you do. A lot of the things that I've talked about are on those references. Take a picture of this and read all these articles. I'm going to send you this a presentation afterwards, but read those articles because you'll understand what's happening. Make sure that you download, read regularly, cite, review, submit papers, and invite your students to support for Tourism Review. And stay in touch. Thank you. You said 45 minutes, Metin. I think I've done it in 40. Okay.
Okay, so I can owe you 5 minutes, for an extra time for the next time. Okay, thank you, Dimitrios. I think we have some couple of questions, but I don't know. There is one question which is very critical about your publications.
Well, let's say.
The samurai, she or he says, do you have any published work which has a lot of citations but don't have any meaning for today?
Do you have any published work which has a lot of citations but do not have meaning for today? I'm not sure I understand that. Do you have any published work which has a lot of citations but do not have meaning for today's situation?
So I think
no.
Could be if your research, your publication is out of date today. I think perhaps this could be the message.
Well, if this is about my own publications, I think the answer is still no. I'm dealing with technology. So with technology, things are moving. So a lot of the things that you're publishing, and I think the first publication I've done in tourism management in 1993, it's the regional integrated computer reservation management systems. And I think that this is incredibly relevant today. The technologies are totally different, but what I'm describing in that 93 paper, which is really about destination management systems, has not implemented yet. Nobody, no destination has actually done such a comprehensive system. And if you see what I'm publishing now on smart technologies and things like that, it's basically the same idea, but the technology and how we implement these things have changed. So in the same way that you may have changed your car and your car may be much more powerful and all the rest of it, but actually it does exactly the same function. But most of the things are still relevant. Now, there are occasions where things are not relevant, that things are getting out of date, and of course, that is scientific research. It's moving forward. And that's fine too, because at that time it served its purpose. So I was writing yesterday the preface for the encyclopedia, and I was looking to the things I've been saying in 1999 on limits of tourism development. At the time, nobody was talking about over-tourism, and I was talking about the oversupply of tourism. I don't think the over-tourism exists. But that publication, 1999, it's so much more relevant to a lot of the things that people are talking now. So it's always like that.
I think, from the academic point of view, I think one publication, once it was published, I think it starts getting more citations after, let's say, 10 or 12 years. This is what we, I think, talk about when, during a conference, somewhere in Asia. I think this is the idea by, Bob McCarthy. So it's 10 or 12 years is a long time,
But it depends what you're dealing with. I mean, Bob is dealing with cultural tourism, and cultural tourism takes a while that people catching up. But on technology, a lot of my publications are going really, really fast. Have a look at the real-time publication. There's gone.
You still get publications, citations from your publications in 1990s on technology.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So, but yeah,
Okay,
about the practical point of view, perhaps in practice, the outcomes or the consequences of our publications may not take such a long time, but in academic terms, I think they still keep going, having more interest or citations.
Absolutely, it takes time, and it depends how strategic you are and how far away you see. Let's progress with some of the questions here. So I'd like to answer everything.
There is one question from Rosaria. What are the main differences between structuring a paper for a scientific, let's say, review or journal, or for a book purpose?
Thank you, Rosario. Basically, a scientific journal is looking into new things and is looking to publish new areas. When you're looking into a book, books are primarily studied by students unless it's a monograph. And therefore, most of the books are synthesizing existing knowledge. It's not, you wouldn't waste your best research and the new knowledge on a book chapter or on a book. You will kind of do the publication first, and then you synthesize that on a book. So we're just about to publish a book on gamification, and the book on the gamification is going to come up in a couple of months. But this is synthesizing a lot of the things that we've done in the last 4 or 5 years on gamification. So it's basically, the book is a synthesis of everything we've done. But you really need to focus the new stuff needs to come out in journals. Selecting the journal before even building the paper is accurate. I had this experience that I had to choose it, then I built the paper accordingly. I got rejected 5 times, and each time I made additions to the paper according to the target journal, and at the end the paper turned into a thesis almost. I think it's an issue, and you take the risk. But I think you must choose the journal before you start the research. For example, if we're dealing with tourism, if you're doing social science, you really need to go with annals. You really need to focus on the annals situation. If you're doing management marketing, you may like to publish in tourist management. You really need, and tourist management doesn't, for example, publish any structural equation modeling. So you really need to know these things. The other thing that they do is they would like to have 2 or 3 data sets. So unless you kind of target that in advance, you are never going to catch up. And of course, okay, if you get rejected 5 times for a journal, that does not mean that you're not going to get to another journal. But at least you have started to go that way. If you would like to do geography in tourism, you probably have specific journals that you would like to do. And it wouldn't fit in something else. So you really need to start from the journal. I'm absolutely certain on this. Faizan says, what relative is news in research? Something very new in hospitality and tourism may not be new in other disciplines. Can this be dealt with working in multidisciplinary teams? I think, Faizan, that's a very interesting question. I think you really need to engage with different disciplines, and you need to cross-fertilize between disciplines. And I think working with multidisciplinary teams is always useful, and it's always enlarged the scope of what you're doing. I think you're absolutely right. I think what I find now, because now I'm publishing more in marketing journals, and what I find now is that most of the marketing journals are very much focused on very specific measurements of very specific things. And I think what they are actually missing quite often is the big picture. And I don't know if those of you who are on my Facebook and my LinkedIn or any social media, you see that we've just got the award for one of the papers we did for the Journal of Service Management, where we really had a very multidisciplinary team. We brought people from tourism, but we also brought a lot of people from service management, from technology, from e-commerce. And I think, and we were dealing with disruption. And a lot of the tourism and hospitality colleagues were saying there's no disruption, while the e-commerce people were seeing all the disruption happening. And they've seen it in retailing, they've seen it in different kind of contexts. So we learn from that, and that's why the paper is doing so well, and that's why I got the award.
So Dimitrios, let me ask another, similar question in that context. So with Anatolia, we did, finish writing a paper on the chronological, bibliography of, tourism journals, and also papers published in tourism field. So we have found that, the number of, authors, co-authors for each paper is increasing. And this is what we can see almost, all tourism or non-tourism journals since the beginning of this century. I think we have more co-authored or, more collaborated, papers with more authors. So this is what I can see also from your publications. Perhaps we have so many young, colleagues, with us now. So how can you choose these people, your co-authors, or how can you choose any person in or out of tourism field when you decide to write a paper?
I think this is critically strategic question, and I think that's something that's really, really important. And I think some of us were quite lucky. I was very lucky because my supervisor was Chris Cooper. Mm-hmm. And Chris was incredibly supportive. He helped me incredibly to actually understand what we need to do, and co-authored with me in the beginning, but also he allowed me to publish on myself, and he supported me. I think you really need to choose your mentors. You really need to see who are the people that they are writing in your area and how can they mentor you. And you really need to have mentors that they are selfless. They need to look after your own interest, and you need to develop long-term relationships. You really need to look into how successful those mentors are on their own right. Are they successful? Have they published good stuff? Do you really respect what they've published? Are they respected? Have they got the recognition that is required? And have they made an impact to society? I think that's the most critical thing. Have they made an impact to society? And if they've made an impact to society, are they willing to help you to actually follow their footsteps? And I think that's why I'm very proud that I've worked with 162 co-authors, and many of those co-authors were my PhD students or their junior academics who came along and they said, can you help us shape our ideas, make them interesting, make them publishable, get them out. And I think that is my role, if you like, and the role of all the senior academics right now, to help people understand how they can progress and make sure that they can go to they can excel, because that's how society progresses. You can do so many things yourself, but if you've got bigger teams, you can do so much better. And a lot of people are actually doing a lot of service to the community. Faizan is here, and he's doing a lot of things on his blog and on his YouTube in explaining people quantitative methods and how they can publish and how they can use it. I think we really need to harness all the help that we have got, and I think a lot of the young people are incredibly lucky right now because they can have access to a lot of the resources. When I was growing up and academically, we didn't have a lot of these things. I used to study at the island of Chios, and if I needed the book that was not in the library, I had to get on a boat, go for 12 hours to Athens, and hope that I'm gonna get the book there. Now everybody can have anything from wherever. They can see so many YouTube, so many channels. A lot of the younger researchers are luckier in that perspective. It's the competition is much higher, but at least you've got much more resources to be able to deal with these things.
So, Dimitrios, one more question. So, what do you think if we can publish, non-tourism journal in other fields? Do you think we can get more citations compared to those in tourism journals, or less?
Look, I think you really need to publish where you feel that your paper fits best. And I've never chased citations. Citations chase me.
Right.
But let's face it, the other fields like marketing, it's much bigger. So now I've published in the psychology and marketing. This year I've published in the Journal of Advertising this year with colleagues. And I think that the papers that we send to those journals, they fitted best in those journals. And I think they'll be cited very well because those disciplines and those areas are bigger than tourism. So think of how many professors of marketing you've got around the world versus how many professors of tourism you've got around the world. But still, in order to publish in generic journals, you really need to have something to add to their discipline and make sure that you make a contribution to that. And I encourage people to do. I encourage people to have a discipline journal that they are publishing on, and also their tourism journal where they are publishing on. Because it's really, we really need to engage on this multidisciplinarity, and we really need to engage with the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, there's one more question, I think, adding up question from Rosario. So according to your point, what are the essential premises for a case study, like nature parks or cities, to be interesting for science and investigation applicable to other similar situations?
I think if out of the case study you can have generalizable kind of results that other people can use, it's useful. If you don't, it is not useful. So if you're talking about, you know, and I have some slides that I didn't present today about the village of my mother. If they're talking about the village of my mother, they're going to be published on the Journal of the Village of My Mother. So the case studies can be very useful, provided that they are creating I cannot say this word, generalizable results that a lot of people can actually use them in different contexts. Otherwise, it's only relevant for this context. And so the last question from Rosario regarding literature: what advice can you give in terms of innovative approaches of saying what is not? I think you really need to look into the latest publications. You really need to look into what is latest. I get a lot of papers in Tourism Review that have got citations from 2004, 2005, 2006, especially if it's in technology. It's not relevant. I'm just telling, do you know the latest literature, 2020, 2019? And I think that's really, really critical. What are your thoughts on current literature approaching regarding the impacts of COVID 2019? From Adam. I think nobody knows the impacts of COVID 2019, and everybody who is saying that they know the impacts, they have no idea what they're talking about, and they get this rejected. I think it's critical to understand how to deal with COVID-19 and what kind of situation it brings and address that. But please do not talk about the impacts of COVID-19 until another 5 years or so, when we really know the impacts of COVID-19. What would you advise to economists who want to publish in tourism journals, any areas which is interesting? I think have a look on the tourism economics, the Journal of Tourism Economics, because they are publishing specifically on economic issues. And if I was starting now, and if I was an economist, I will kind of start from tourism economics as the first journal, because that is the discipline kind of journal on tourism economics.
Okay, yes. Any other questions? So yes, why would you like to come to Turkey as a tourist? So this is
to see Metin. I really like to come out. I really want to come and see good friends and to see Metin.
To write a paper, perhaps, about tourism in Turkey.
And have Imam Baildi and enjoy raki and all of these things. Okay, are we done? 1 hour.
Okay, yeah. So Yes, there's one question from Noman. What topics that you may suggest apart from IPECO? You know, I think
this is the wrong question, Neumann. It's really what you're really interested in. What is you would like to love to research, and what does your community need right now? I think this is what you need to answer. It doesn't matter what Buhalis thinks that's interesting. It's what Jakarta needs right now, and how can you engage with different kind of people in your community? Maybe culture, maybe environment, maybe security, maybe COVID, maybe dealing with traffic, maybe creating some attractions and branding. It's endless. The list is endless. So choose what you love to do and what you like to submit.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Dimitrios. It was very, you know, I think helpful for all of us with us, you know, today. So thank you all for your contribution and very useful ideas. And I'm sure, I think, especially our, you know, junior colleagues here, scholars will be, I think, benefiting from your speech, you know, from your online lecture to think about different subjects or ideas for their future works. So,
güle güle.
Güle güle, yes. Take care. Kendine iyi bak. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Teşekkürler arkadaşlar. Thank you very much to all our audience. Bye bye. Thank you.